The Lord is merciful and gracious, slow to anger and plenteous in mercy. He will not always chide, neither will he keep his anger forever. He hath not dealt with us after our sins, nor rewarded us according to our iniquities. For as the heaven is high above the earth, so great is his mercy toward them that fear him. As far as the east is from the west, so far hath he removed our transgression from us. Like as a father pitied his children, so the Lord pitied them that fear him. For he knoweth our frame, he remembered that we are dust. As for man, his days are as grass, as a flower of the field, so he flourished. For the wind passeth over it, and it's gone, and the place thereof shall know it no more. What follows are some statements about God's communicable attributes, the things about him that man can understand. These things are also mentioned in Exodus chapter 34, verse 6. Among them are mercy, grace, patience, and leniency, verses 8, 9, and 10. These are based on his knowledge of his creation. He knoweth our frame, verse 14, and knows that it was framed from dirt. See Job chapter 10, verse 9. He knows that our days are as grass, as the flower of the field, verse 15. See Isaiah chapter 40, verse 6, and Psalm chapter 37, verse 2, and chapter 90, verse 5. We can not only be blown about with every wind of doctrine, Ephesians chapter 4, verse 14. We can be blown clean off the map. For the wind passed over it, and it's gone, verse 16. Hurricanes, tornadoes, see Job chapter 1, verse 19, and typhoons can remove us from our place, verse 16. And the germs of typhus, fever, and boxes born in the air can kill us. The big thing coming up is chemical warfare. It's the wind that spreads the destruction. The east wind destroys Pharaoh, Exodus chapter 10, verse 13, and chapter 14, verse 21. The Lord is merciful. The Lord is gracious. He allowed a whole generation of Israelites who should have been killed 8 days after they were born. See Genesis chapter 17, verse 10, and Joshua chapter 5, verse 3, to live. He let Samson violate every rule in the book, and after Samson committed suicide, God registered him with the heroes of faith. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 32. He let David live after he had committed 2 sins for which no Old Testament sacrifice could atone. Psalm chapter 51, verse 16. David died of old age. The Lord is gracious. The Lord is slow to anger. He put up with Israel for 40 years in the wilderness. Acts chapter 13, verse 18. He put up with idolatry for 400 years in the book of Judges. He gave Israel nearly 40 years to get right after they had crucified and rejected his only begotten Son. He put up with Manasseh, 2 Chronicles chapter 33, verses 1 to 13, until the old sinner got right, although God could have killed him for breaking the law. Ditto Ahab, see 1 Kings chapter 21, verses 25 to 29. Neither will he keep his anger forever. Verse 9. The Jews got back to Palestine after 1875 years. He promised restoration to Jerusalem while Nebuchadnezzar was in the act of destroying it. Jeremiah chapter 32, verses 5 to 10. Even Egypt and Assyria finally get the blessing. Isaiah chapter 11, verse 16, chapter 19, verse 23 and 24. He will not always chide. He rebukes at times, but at other times he smiles on his children. He scolded David 2 Samuel chapter 12 verse 10 to 12, and chastened him, Psalm chapter 119 verse 67. But when the sunset of life came, 1 Chronicles chapter 29 verse 28, David died a rich and honored man with a secure throne and God's blessing on his life. Acts chapter 13 verse 36. He scolded Moses, Numbers 20 verse 12, but led him into the promised land about 1500 years later. Matthew chapter 17 verses 1 to 6. If God had dealt with us after our sins, verse 10, we would be dead and in hell. Cain wasn't rewarded according to his iniquities, neither were you, as far as the east is from the west, verse 12, is pretty far. You will have to admit, for the globe spins and east never catches up with west. Doctrinally, the hour is Israel for the covenant, and the commandments are in evidence. See verse 18, which all of the commentators ignored usually. However, we can make some application for verse 15, says, as for man and them that fear him, verse 11, are found in the New Testament as Gentiles who are attending the services in the synagogue. See Acts chapter 13, verse 16. A mother comforted, Isaiah chapter 66, verse 13, whereas a father pitied, verse 13. The distinction goes across the grain of all equal rights advocates and women's lippers, for it clearly shows that men are not only different from women in physical structure, emotional makeup, outlook on life, self-sufficiency, stability and reproductive powers, but also in their ability to respond to a child's need. No one can comfort like a mother. But the mercy of the Lord is from everlasting to everlasting upon them that fear him, and his righteousness unto children's children, to such as keep his covenant, and to those that remember his commandments to do them. The Lord had prepared his throne in the heavens, and his kingdom ruled over all. Bless the Lord, ye his angels that excel in strength, that do his commandments, hearkening unto the voice of his word. Bless ye the Lord, all ye hosts, ye ministers of his that do his pleasure. Bless the Lord, all his works in all places of his dominion. Bless the Lord, O my soul. Those verses have two applications, primarily to God's general power and authority over the universe at any time, and secondarily to his reign at Jerusalem in the millennium. The phrase, the Lord had prepared his throne in the heavens, verse 19, will be enough to prevent the Scholars' Union from making any future prophetic application. They read it as the Lord had been sitting on his throne in the heavens and will stay there. But the throne prepared in the heavens, verse 19, shows up on this earth as the Lord's throne, Jeremiah chapter 3, verse 17, chapter 14, verse 21, chapter 33, verses 16 to 17. His kingdom ruleth over all, verse 19, in the sense of Daniel chapter 4, verse 17, Daniel chapter 4, verse 32, as we have remarked before. The writer of Hebrews knows where we are, so he cites Psalm 104, verse 4, in Hebrews chapter 1, verse 7, since it's attached to the angels of Psalm 103, verse 20. They are called ministering spirits sent forth to minister in Hebrews chapter 1, verse 7 and 14. And he got that expression from Psalm chapter 103, verse 21. Ye ministers of his. The angels excel in strength, which is evidenced by the fact that one of them is quite capable of killing 185,000 men in less than 12 hours. 2 Kings chapter 19, verse 35. They hearken to his voice, and do his commandments. Verse 20. We can say that the center of praise, bless the Lord. The concert of praise, angels, the redeemed, ministers, and the surrounding creation. And we can say the climax of praise, bless the Lord, O my soul.